We're holding Daf Yotes, 19a on the top. It says, Tana Rabbanon. Before I begin, Naftali commented yesterday that it's like one page of Gemara, but you're going through like many simanim of Shulchan Aruch. You're going to see that today is even worse or better. It's just topics. Many simanim of Hilchos Shabbos are in like each page here. The first case is Tana Rabbanon was taught in a brayso and Neisnim Bezenis Lefnei HaKelev B'Chatzer Natlu V'Yatza Einis Kakanlai. So you're not allowed to feed stray animals on Shabbos. Like when we do tashlach, we don't feed the fish, even though what they always told us is that we're going to throw the bread in or whatever and feed the fish, but that's not what we do on Shabbos or Yom Tov. And the reason is because we're not supposed to put in extra effort to feed animals that are not our responsibility. So if someone has a dog, he's allowed to feed his dog in the courtyard because it's his responsibility. Now, if the dog leaves, so that's not a problem. We were talking before about giving something to a non-Jew right before Shabbos and he leaves your courtyard right before Shabbos, that there could have been an issue with that maybe you would send it to him on Shabbos or something along that could have been shlichus. We'll see there's other concerns as well. But for the dog, to put food in front of the dog, and if it leaves the courtyard, it's not a problem. Interesting comparison, or it's not a comparison, it's a follow-up. Similarly, you can put food in front of a non-Jew in the courtyard. And there's no problem if he takes it and he leaves. We're going to see that there's a huge difference. But the Gemara originally says, 1 second. If there's no problem of leaving the courtyard for the dog, because he did that on his own, you didn't send the food out of the courtyard, which would be from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. He just did that on his own. So the same thing with the non-Jew. He just did that on his own. The Gemara says, Hasul Amali, why do you have to give two cases of the same situation? Hainu it's the same thing. So the Gemara says, Mahu the tema, I could have thought differently. What could you have said? Hi Rami Eily, Hi Rami Eily, Aleha, that there's a difference. Because the dog, you're obligated to feed it. So therefore, we would say there's a leniency. But by the non-Jew, you don't have that obligation to feed him. So you would say that you shouldn't be allowed to give him. Kamash Malan, that it's not a problem. Well, the Mahud Tema is a very strong Mahud Tema. What might you have said that the dog you're obligated to feed, it's your animal, you have responsibility, but the non-Jew, he goes and gets his own food. So why exactly are you allowed to feed the non-Jew on Shabbos? Taisus brings this up. He says that what we do, first of all, he doesn't. The exact answer I'm not sure, but he says that we're only discussing food, because food, it's assumed that he would eat it right there and he won't take it out. But if you're going to give him other objects, that would be a problem on Shabbos, even according to Beis Hillel. We had a machlokes Beis Hillel about giving other objects before Shabbos, but on Shabbos itself, everyone would agree that that's prohibited. Taisus gives an answer to the question, why is he actually allowed to feed the non-Jew? He says, well, look, when it comes to tzedakah, it says, Mefarnesin aniyei nachrim emani Yisrael mishum darki shalom. When it comes to tzedakah, you give to the non-Jews together with the Jews because of darki shalom, because that's increasing peace. So that's considered that you have an obligation to feed him. Oh, interesting. You have an obligation to feed him. So then on Shabbos, it's not like feeding the fish and the sea that we don't do. There is a slight obligation there when it comes to tzedakah. Now, okay, that's regarding this. If you notice on the side, there's this little taisvus. It's called Taisvus Yeshanim. It's like the font is different. Apparently, it got added in or something. They have over there a story of a non-Jew that got sick. He sends to a Jew, it's on Yom Tov. He says, send me wine. If you don't give me wine, I'm going to die. I don't know what sickness that was. But anyway, it was a very strong person, like a powerful person. And they permitted him to send to the non-Jew on Shabbos, Mishum Darkei Shalom. How did they send it? They sent it with another non-Jew to take it through the streets. And this happened to be on Yom Tov. The case happened to be on Yom Tov, but they said the same halacha would have applied on Shabbos. And the reason for that exception is because we don't have today Rosh Hashanah Deraisa, so we have certain leniencies. Okay, that's the Gemara. Taner Rabbanan, another Gemara. Lo yasker adam kelev l'nachri b'erev Shabbos. The person shouldn't rent his tools, utensils, to a non-Jew on Erev Shabbos. What's the problem? Tosfos spells it out. He says, it looks like you're renting it for Shabbos. And when you take the rental fee, it looks like it's specifically Schar Shabbos, that the rental went just for Shabbos. But look at what the Gemara then goes on. It says, B'dalad Behim Mutter, that if you rented it on Wednesday or Thursday, that's allowed. That would be considered B'havla, that even if you're getting payment for Shabbos, but it comes together with payment for the rest of the week, that's like swallowed in, and that's considered acceptable. Kiyotzi, similarly, Ein Meshalchani Garis Biad Nachri B'erev Shabbos. You can't send a letter in the mail with a non-Jew on Erev Shabbos. But V'dalad Behim Mutter, but you can send it on Wednesday or Thursday. Amru alav al Rabbi Yossi HaKohen v'amri la al Rabbi Yossi HaChassid. They said about Rabbi Yossi HaKohen. Rabbi Yossi HaKohen is not so common. Rabbi Yossi HaKohen was one of the students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And we have over there Rabbi Lezer ben Hurkanes, Rabbi Lezer ben Arach, Rabbi Shimon ben Nesanel, and Rabbi Yossi HaKohen. Who's the other one? Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua. But Rabbi Yossi HaKohen, and some say that it's Rabbi Yossi HaChassid. Now, I don't know if that means it's someone else. Could be that Rabbi Yossi HaKohen. Who said? Who said? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said about one of them that he's a Chassid. I think it was Rabbi Yossi. So maybe it's the same person in just the different versions over here is what he was called. I have to check that up. Avram Nassan, you know the Mishnayos over there. Is it the same one? Okay.
I think this is the Mishnah where it says, one person says it's like a sponge, and one person says like he was like a. I can't find the Mishnah in Perek Yavetz.
It's in Perek Beis. It's probably like Mishnah Ches or something. Zayin Ches. Okay. So what did they say about Rabbi Yossi? Either a Kohen or a Chassid. So a Kohen is Chassid, by the way. So not like a Levi. So he never sent a letter with a non-Jew. He was afraid the non-Jew is going to carry it on Shabbos. So, okay, what's our concern? Is a concern that he's a shliach for you, and then he's going to be taking this on Shabbos. Maybe it's because you hired him specifically to carry it out of the Tchum on Shabbos. If you give it to him, then we don't have this concern. We put letters in the mail. I remember that there was a concern with a one-day overnight mail. That was a concern. You weren't supposed to do that on Shabbos. We put letters in the mail on Friday. Yeah, we'll see possibly why. We'll see. The Gemara is gonna give us a possibility, some more criteria to how this works. Tana Rabbanan, we start in a brisa. Ein mishalchen igers b'yad nachri erev Shabbos elam kein katzis leidamim. You're not allowed to send it with a non-Jew unless you set a price. You're sending a letter, unless you have a set price already. If you set the price, then you set a price for the job. Then he does whatever he wants. You already decided what the price is. He can do it how he likes. Bishamai says no. That he has to reach the house of the person where it's being sent before Shabbos. Basil says no. Nasan, you have an answer for us?
No. It's definitely not Perek Beis. I'll look it up later.
It's the same. No, I looked it up.
Oh, it's the same? Okay. Yeah. So it could be that that's the pshat in this Gemara. The question is just how to refer to Rabbi Yossi. Did they refer in Chayv Adam Leimer B'Lashon Rabbi? We want to say it exactly the way our tradition is. So that's what they're discussing. Some say that he said Rabbi Yossi HaKohen. Some say that he called him Rabbi Yossi HaChassan. And it would be the same person. So Basil says, no, he just has to be able to reach the wall, to the house next to the wall that he was sent to. That means he doesn't have to actually get there, close to there. Gemara says, 1 second, but you just said, we're talking about where you set the price. So there's no problem. If there's a set price, the fee is already established, and he's just doing it on his own, for himself. The fact that he's going on Shabbos. Rav Sheshes says, no. If the price was set, then there's no problem. He can do it. This is what it means. If you didn't set a price for the fee, then Beshami says he has to reach the location of where it's being, the destination before Shabbos. So Basil says that it has to reach the house that's closest to the wall. It means like into that city. It says, but you started off saying that you're not allowed to send. Then you said that if you set a price, there's no problem. And then you started to make conditions. So it's either yes, no, or maybe. So, but in the yes or no, what are those conditions that you're doing? It says, like kasha. It depends. If there is a postal service, or there's a postman in the town, so then without setting a price, then you can give it to him before Shabbos, even without setting a price, as long as he'll be able to reach those locations. But if there is a postman, that's if there is a postman. If there isn't a postman, then you're not allowed to give it to anyone without setting a price, because then he's doing it totally for you. I think what's happening here is that when you give it to him and he lives in the town, once he takes it home, it's like you're finished. There's some leniency. There's some leniency, even though you didn't set a price, but he takes the responsibility more, like his own responsibility. Otherwise, if you're sending it with someone that's not an official postman, then you're sending him to take it on Shabbos, and that becomes more of an issue. There's a bunch of different criteria here. Anyone see a summary in your if you have an art scroll or something? Do they summarize it to say when it's allowed? Whatever the case is, it's clear that in one case, you're allowed to send, but you need certain conditions. It's machlekes Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. In one case, you're not allowed to send. Someone has something there.
Is there a difference between if he's in the same city or in a different city? In other words, where is he sending the letter? To the city where he is in?
No, he's sending it out of the city. That's the problem.
Because I'm reading here that part of the machlek, I mean, it could be the different situations if is the destination in the city or outside the city.
So maybe he's saying the Beit Dayar is like already considered like a destination. So even though he's sending it outside the city, but that first stop is considered like his initial destination, and that's why it becomes more permissible. Yeah, even without setting a price.
Yes, he's saying that's only if the receiver lives in the same city. Bekviyat, and he goes into Bekviyat, yeah.
Okay, let's see the next Gemara, Tan Rabbanan. The next Gemara has some very serious machlekes, and for the reason for this. It's taught in the Braise, Ein mafligen besfina pachas migimel yom kedel l'Shabbos. You're not allowed to go on a boat for 3 days before Shabbos. That means before Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You can't go on a boat. You'd have to go before Wednesday. That's only if it's a voluntary boat trip. Probably a cruise. That may not be voluntary. So your wife may be slapping you. Mitzvah. But if it's for a mitzvah, it means a mitzvah for like Pidin Shuyim or something, L'Kabel Pnei Rabbi. You're going to visit the teacher. So Shaper Dummy, then that's acceptable. This is, I don't know exactly how that would work, but you're supposed to tell him, the captain, that you want him to stop on Shabbos. And then he doesn't stop anyway. I guess the boat shouldn't sail or whatever they would do. And then if he doesn't stop, it's not a problem. Divrei Rabbi. That's Rabbi's opinion. It's not necessary. You don't have to do that. What does it mean ein tzarech? Does it mean you don't have to do anything? I think ein tzarech means you don't have to make up with him, probably. However, mitzur letzidan afil b'erev Shabbos mutter. This was a small trip, and on erev Shabbos you could get there from Tzur to Tzidan, Tyre to, I don't know what Tzidan is, Sidon probably. That was a small trip, and they would go there. Apparently there was a market there. They would go on erev Shabbos to the market. So that was something that you're allowed to do if it's a small trip. There's a discussion in the Paiskim what's the issue over here. Some say that there's seasickness that takes place the first 3 days. And because of Einik Shabbos, you shouldn't be going out on the boat for those 3 days. It's going to disturb your Shabbos. After 3 days, you're already used to it. Others say that there's malachas that are going to need to be performed for you during the first 3 days. You don't know what's going to come up. So the first 3 days, you're not supposed to go. You have you have an obligation of from 3 days before Shabbos to be concerned about about keeping Shabbos. So you don't want to put yourself into a situation where things may arise during those 3 days. Similarly, like we have 30 days before Pesach, we have to be concerned that your chametz may not be consumed So like obligations of Pesach start. So 3 days before Shabbos, obligations of Shabbos begin. It's a philosophical discussion. Are you obligated to keep Shabbos during the weekday? Do the obligations of Shabbos come on you during the weekday? Or is it only on Shabbos? Are you obligated during the weekday to keep Shabbos on Shabbos? That's okay. Taner Rabbanan, another brayse. It says, "Ein tzarin ala yaresh shel nachrim pachas migim liyam kedem l'Shabbos." Not allowed to lay siege to a city, a non-Jewish city, within 3 days of Shabbos. What's the concern? If you started ein mafsik and then you don't stop. What's the concern? I don't know, probably malachas or something. You're going to end up violating Shabbos for one thing or another. I hear you, Nassim. I remember reading in the book of, I think it was in the book of the Maccabees, one of them, I think it was in the book of the Maccabees, from the Apocrypha, the Svarim Chitzainim. Over there, they said that they didn't know that they were allowed to fight battle on Shabbos, and they lost the first war or something because they attacked on Shabbos. The Jews didn't know that they were allowed to fight back. And then they told them, no, you're allowed to fight on Shabbos. The Greeks apparently said, oh, this is going to be easy. We're just going to fight on Shabbos, and the Jews aren't allowed to do anything. And then they said, no, you can fight back on Shabbos.
I think this is probably referring to like a war of reshus, not a war of defense.
Right.
Like if they wanted to conquer land for whatever reason, you have to wait Sunday to Tuesday. But if you're doing it to defend yourself, then it could be any day of the week. Right.
Shammai says, I'd read it to Afilu b'Shabbos. We have a pasuk that says, you lay siege to the city, you're there, you wait, you stay there till it's destroyed entirely. Obviously, it means that you're going to continue doing that even on Shabbos. Otherwise, you can't give them relief on Shabbos. They go resupply themselves or whatever. Okay. Amar Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Nayig and Hayu. This was a quote from the Mishnah. We had a discussion about giving clothing to the launderer. On Erev Shabbos, it was machlekes Beisil and Beishamai. Beisil said it wasn't a problem. Beishamai said it was a problem. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that the custom in my father's house was that white clothes were given to the launderer 3 days before Shabbos, which meant that they were strict like Beishamai. They were strict, and white clothes apparently takes longer. Okay, Tanya was taught in a brayso. Amar Reb Tzadok. Reb Tzadok says he was close to the family of the Nasi, because when Rabbi Yechim Zaka was the one that asked for the house to preserve the house of the Nasi, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel's family, and doctors for Reb Tzadok. Reb Tzadok says, "Kachim and Hagashal Beis Reb Gamliel, she'yenaistim klei lavan lekayves gimel yom kedem l'Shabbos." Reb Tzadok says that was the custom in Reb Gamliel's house. It's interesting. Our Mishnah says Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Reb Tzadok goes back a generation. Says that was the custom of Reb Gamliel, that they would give white clothes to the launderer 3 days before Shabbos, but colored clothing that they would give even on Erev Shabbos. Apparently, it's not as difficult to wash colored clothing because the stains are probably covered. You can't see the stains as well because there's colors there. And from their words, it was understood that it's more difficult to wash white clothes. White has to be entirely white. Colored clothing, the shades of the color, probably I don't know if they had it as perfect as as we have it today. And it could be if a little off here or there, that was still considered a red or blue or whatever. So it was more difficult to wash the white clothes. Abaya, Haviyav le'yahu mana de tzviyah lekatra. Katra means a launder. Abaya gave this colored garment to a launder. The yeshivas say it must have been his wife's, because yeshiva bachim Abaya had to have a white shirt. So Amalei, he said to him, "Kama ba'yisalave." How much time do you? No, not time. How much payment do you need? Amalei kidachivra. He says the same payment that you would give me for a white garment. So he's lying to him. He says, "Amalei kvar kadmuch rabbanan." The rabbis beat you to it. They told me already that that's not true. That white clothing is harder to wash than colored clothing, and it can't be that you're charging me that's the actual price. Amar Abaya, Hai man diyav mana lekatra. If someone gives a garment to the launder, b'mishcha neisavle b'mishcha nishkal minay. You should measure it before you give it to him, and measure it when you get it back. Ditafe, if he stretched it, afsade, he ruined it. Dematche, because he stretched it. If it's longer, afsade, he ruined it. Dematche, because he stretched it. Bibatzer, and if it's too short, afsade, he also ruined it. The kavtzi, because he shrunk it. So I thought, reading this the first time, I thought this would be because he stole. Someone told me when I first came to Miami, he says, "Oh, here in Miami, it's like South America. You have to look at your receipts, every receipt. You know, Americans go to the store, you take the receipt, you don't look at your change. You assume everything added up correctly." He says, "No, over here, you have to add it up yourself, each thing." I don't know. But I guess in South America, that's what you have to do, because they could fool you just on the adding, on the way they add things up. So that's what I thought this Gemara was going to say. He says, no, he cut off some of the material. He's giving it back to you shorter. That's not what it's saying. It's saying that in his procedures, could be he stretched it or he shrunk it. Okay. Shrunk it. It says it shrunk it with hot water. I guess it would be the dryer. Okay, there was a leniency in the Mishnah that said that even though there's a machlekes Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai regarding what you're allowed to give or do Erev Shabbos, Beis Hillel was lenient and Beis Shammai was strict, but everyone agreed that if you put olives or grapes in a press before Shabbos, and I guess the original crushing was done, you can leave them there to drip over Shabbos. That wasn't a problem. Even though Beis Shammai was strict about starting things before Shabbos, he says here the main thing was done already, had that first crush or whatever, and now it's just oozing out the rest of it. That's just dripping. Wasn't a problem. Everyone agreed to that. The Gemara asks, Maishna Kulu, why by all of them the Gazru Beis Shammai? That Beis Shammai had a decree about that. Why by the beam of the olive and by the circles? I guess they had some sort of thing that they would of the wine press. Why over there didn't they make a decree? The Gemara says, Hanach, those other things. That if they were done on Shabbos Mechayev Chatas, then there would be a Chiyav Chatas, and in others would be a Malacha Daraisa. So goes through Beis Shammai, Erev Shabbos Simchat Sheikha. Then Beis Shammai made a decree to do these Erev Shabbos. You might end up doing it on Shabbos. But Kurz Beis Abadvi, Gulei Agast, Yavadu Beis Shabbos, Lemechayev Chatas Legazru. But these things, they won't come to be the Chiyav Chatas, even if you do it on Shabbos. Why? I assume the main malacha was done already. Now it's just dripping. It's just dripping out. Rashi before told us that there's a problem of mefarik. Mefarik is letting out something that's contained inside. It's a tolda of dash. Here, the olives and the grapes were already crushed before. And even if you didn't put the beam on it, it would also drip out. This just drips it out a little quicker. But it's not considered dash, threshing, because it's already opened up the casings of the peels, all of that. It's already crushed. Okay. Mantana, the kolmi didasamela shapidami. Who's the opinion that holds that you're allowed to let these type of things continue on Shabbos without doing any activity, and that's considered acceptable? Amar Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Chanina, it was the early Amir in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yosi Bar Chanina says, Rabbi Shmuel, it's Rabbi Shmuel, who's a Tana. The Tanan was taught in the Mishnah. Hashum, which is garlic, va'abaisar, are young grapes. Va'amalilis, these are grains that didn't ripen yet. So these things, they're very sour. And they would shiraskan by diyam, they would crush them by day. The juice would come out, and they would use it as a dip of some sort. It's like a vinegar type of dip. So if this was done, you can still continue working with it even after it gets dark, because it's going to come out anyway. You can still get the juices out. Okay, you can put them into a vessel and let it drip out. Rabbi Akiva says, La yigma, you're not allowed to continue working on it. In other words, you can't put it under a press so that it should finish dripping out on Shabbos, even though that's going to happen on its own. What's going on? Rabbi Akiva is holding like Beis Shammai. Why can't I thought you can do everything before Shabbos and let it continue on Shabbos? Any comment over there in the art scroll why Rabbi Akiva would be strict? You're not doing a malacha on Shabbos. You're doing it before Shabbos. Maybe it's a concern that he's going to do something on Shabbos. Like we have with fire, that you may stoke the coals. Otherwise, it would be the opinion of Beis Shammai. Okay, Rabbi Eliezer Amar Rabbi Lozerhi. Rabbi Lozer Amar Rabbi Lozerhi. This is interesting. It's slightly confusing. Rabbi Lozer says, this is Rabbi Lozer the Amira, whose name was Rabbi Lozer ben Pedas. He says that it's Rabbi Lozer, which is Rabbi Lozer ben Shemua. Yeah, if they gave the last names, it would be easier for us. Rabbi Lozer ben Pedas says that it's Rabbi Lozer ben Shemua. Rabbi Lozer ben Shemua was one of the main students of Rabbi Akiva, one of the 5 students that he made after the other 24,000 passed away. So you had Reb Meir, Reb Yosi, Reb Yehuda, Rabbi Lozer ben Shemua, and Reb Shimon bar Yochai. Rabbi Lozer ben Shemua, it's interesting that he's not as frequent as Reb Meir and Reb Yehuda in the Gemara. But apparently he lived very long, and he was one of the Asara Harugi Malchus, one of the 10 martyrs. So Rabbi Elazar, who's Rabbi Elazar ben Pedas, the student of Rabbi Yechanan, he says that it was Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua, that he's the one that says that you're allowed to let things continue on Shabbos as long as you're not active. The Tanan started in the Mishnah. Chalis Dvash, Riskan Be'erev Shabbos.
How could Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel argue on Rabbi Akiva, his teacher?
Ooh, that's so interesting. It's going to be a different case. Maybe there's a difference in the case. He's allowed to argue, but nevertheless, let's try to make it that it's a different case, just to avoid that. We'll see. The Gemara is going to ask why each one doesn't say like the other one. It says like this: Chalis dvash sheriskan be'erev Shabbos v'yatzu mi'atzman aser. Chalis dvash are honeycomb. It's called chalis because they're sections. I don't know if the honeycombs are the same way they have them today. Today we make frames and we put them in. I assume it's similar. So if they crushed it, because you break the what's it called, the hexagon? You break the those containers that the bees make. The once you crack it, so then the honey comes out. So riskan is you crushed it on Erev Shabbos, but now the honey's coming out from the wax. So it comes out on Shabbos, it's aser. And Rabbi Elazar Mater, Rabbi Elazar says no, it's permissible. It's oozing out on its own. You just have to leave it there. And you're allowed to use that on Shabbos. The first opinion says that you're not allowed to. It's coming out on Shabbos. And Rabbi Elazar probably looks at it like, look, you open a bottle, you can pour what's in it, out of it. Although the Gemara is not going to explain it like that, but the Gemara is going to explain it slightly different. The Gemara says like this: Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina, my time Rabbi Elazar. Why did Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina say that it's Rabbi Yishmael? And he has this Mishnah with garlic and young grapes and grains. It's not right that if it's crushed already, the juices that come out on Shabbos are permissible according to Rabbi Yishmael. Why doesn't he just say like Rabbi Elazar? Why doesn't he say that this is the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, that you're allowed to use what drips out from the honeycomb? Amalach, he would say to you, Hasamhu de mikara eichel b'seif eichel. By Rabbi Elazar, honey could be considered a food. And if you eat it in the honeycomb, it's food. I mean, you have to spit out the wax, but that's considered a salad, like a food. And honey afterwards could also be considered a salad, a food. We know it's one of the liquids when it comes to making something susceptible to tumah, but it could be considered a food. So it's not considered schita, taking a liquid out of a salad, like mefarek, like one of those issues. However, over there, I had garlic, I had a grape, I had grain, and you're taking the juices out of that. So this is more of an issue. And nevertheless, Rabbi Yishmael says that that's allowed. That's more similar to the olives in the press and the grapes in the press. Okay, so that's why he wanted to choose Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Elazar Amalach Hashamin Leila Rabbi Elazar Dafilu Zeisim Namishari. It happens to be Rabbi Elazar said this by a honeycomb. But it turns out that I know that he holds the same thing by olives and grapes. Why? When Rabbi came from Nardai, he brought a brisa. I don't know if Rabbi from Nardai made it to Eretz Yisrael. We're responding for Rabbi Elazar. So it's not Lav Dafka Rabbi Elazar is saying this. We're responding for him. But we know that there's a brisa, and the brisa was brought from Rabbi and Nardai that says like this: Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon allow it. What do you say, Chaim? Now it's mamish. Rabbi Elazar is arguing on the same case. Well, it's not. It's Shumva Beiser. That was Shumva Beiser. Here it's grapes and olives. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon allow the liquid that comes out of it. So you see, it's the same thing. You don't tell me that this was food and it's food afterwards, so that's why it's acceptable. They would hold the same thing if it started as food and it turned into a liquid. Because it happens memela It happens on its own. You're just put a beam on top of it to speed it up, but it's anyways coming out. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, what does he say? It's a good support over there. It says Brisa Leishmi Eily. He didn't know the Brisa. Apparently, that's an acceptable comment. They didn't have to know all the Brisas. I'm sure they had to know all the Mishnayos. But every Brisa, how did they know every Brisa? A Brisa was from different teachers and that were maybe the standard Brisas of Rabbi and Rabbi Shia, that they knew. But other Brisas, they came from different notebooks that they had. It would probably be impossible to know every single, not because it's too much information, because they didn't have access to those, to them. Okay. Rabbi Elazar, my time, Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, we were only doing this in one direction. We were saying why Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina didn't accept Rabbi Elazar, and we had to prove it. And then we said, why now does Rabbi Elazar not go the other way? Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina had a good source. He said garlic and other things, the juices that come out, according to Rabbi Shmuel, are permissible. That would be this opinion as well. Amalach. So he says, Rabbi Elazar would respond to you. Lavitmar Allah, was it not taught on that? Amar Rava bar Chanina, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, b'mechusarin dicha de kol yamalei pligi. If it wasn't crushed, dicha is I forget which one is which. The mortar and the pestle. The mortar is the bowl. Is the mortar the bowl? The pestle. Dicha is the crushing of it. If it wasn't crushed, wasn't crushed, everyone agrees that it's prohibited. Ki pligi b'mechusarin shchika. That the crushing was already done. It just wasn't ground up afterwards. That's where the machlekes is. And the problem is, these grapes and olives are lacking the first step. Yes, it's cracked because and the liquid is starting to ooze out, but it wasn't crushed the way that crushed by that garlic and grains. That was already crushed entirely. Here it's just cracked. So over here, Lav Dafka, they would Rabbi Shmuel would allow it just because he allows it there where it's already crushed. Okay. Here Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina to Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina would paskin like Rabbi Shmuel. And that's the conclusion of that. Shemen shel badodin, machzela shel badodin. Okay. Rashi says that we're switching topics, but because we're talking about an olive press, we're going to go on a little bit. I think other Rishonim say that we're not actually switching topics. Rashi is now turning to a muktzah discussion. There was a little bit of oil that was left in the olive press when they were done. That oil was used for the olive press itself, to oil the press. And they would take that oil that was left and they would use it for whatever machinery they had. And the same as there were certain mats that were used that would cover the olives, those were designated for the use of the press. Question is, are you allowed to move them or not? Rav Asar Shmuel Shari. Rav says that you can't move that. You can't use that oil. You can't move those mats. It's muktzah. And there's a machlekes regarding muktzah. It's a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, where Rabbi Yehuda is strict about muktzah, and Rabbi Shimon is lenient. And Rav paskins like Rabbi Yehuda. And Shmuel paskins like Rabbi Shimon. That's easy to remember, for the shin and the shin. Shmuel, Shimon. And Rabbi Shimon was lenient. Okay, so that's why Rav says it's us and Shmuel says that it's mutter. Hani karchi dezuzi. This must have been a pair of mats. Well, there's another opinion here that says that it's zivi, which that means Rashi says is a boat. Okay, Rav Aser Shmuel Shari. Rav says that it's Aser, Shmuel says that it's Mutter. Again, we're discussing Muktzah. Amar Rab Nachman. A is Lechelba. If you have a goat, the reason why you have that goat is because you milk it. Rachel Legizasa, and you have a sheep that is waiting to be the wool to be shorn. Tarnagolos lebeitzasa, and you have a hen that the reason why is because it gives eggs. Vituri deridia, and you have an ox that's used for plowing. Vitamri diska, and you have dates that are there for sale. Now, Rav Aser Shmuel Amar Mutter. All of these things are considered muktzah according to Rabbi Yehuda because they're designated for purposes other than eating. And Shmuel says no. Shmuel says he doesn't have the same stringency of muktzah that Rav has because he goes like Reb Shimon. If it would have been mamish designated, then that would be different. But here it's just set aside without a statement.
Is this talking about using them, or is this talking about actually shechting them for Yom Tov?
So, the things that are relevant for shechting is talking about shechting. And we're talking about Yom Tov. You would have to designate them before Yom Tov. Take them out of the chicken coop or whatever, put them in the where the chickens get shechted. You would have to do something, somehow designate it that these are not in that pile of whatever. The dates wouldn't apply the shechita, right? The dates for sale. The kamifl plucked to the Rabbi Yehuda Reb Shimon, and this is going back to an earlier machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Shimon regarding muktzah, which means designation. And who tell me the oirei? There was the student that paskind becharta the argiz. Charta is a place, and argiz was the builder of that city. Charta the Argis, basically it's the name of a city. Charta, the city of Argis, or the Charta of Argis. Rashi tells us that he was Gushi, that means he was like a magician. So in that city, there was a student, and he paskin Reb Shimon. He paskin leniently. He said, "Oh, the muktzah was allowed." So Shamti Rav Hamnuna put him in Cherem. The Gemara says, one second, but Reb Shimon's really, you don't get put in Cherem if you hold like Reb Shimon. He says, no, Basri Derav Hava. He was in the territory of Rav, that you don't do. You don't paskin like the other opinion when you're in his location. Hani trei talmidei chad matzel bechad mana v'chad matzel ba'arba v'chamish mani. This is talking about a fire on Shabbos. There's a discussion how to rescue things. Should you put everything into one basket and take it out, or should you take it in different baskets? One did it like this, one did it like that. The Gemara just tells us quickly, the kamifli, the plukta, the Rabbi Barzav, the Ravuna. Later on, there's a machlekes regarding this, how to save from a fire. And each one did according to his shita. Okay, so it's telling us that there's different opinions. Let's take a look at the Mishnah. Mishnah says, "Ein tzelin basar batzalu beyal kadesh yitzul mi b'aydiyim." Don't put on to the grill meat, onions, and eggs before Shabbos, unless they could be cooked before Shabbos with enough time that it should be cooked. We'll see exactly how cooked is cooked. I'll leave it for the Gemara. You can't put bread into the oven before it gets dark. You can't put cake on top of the coals. Apparently, they would put the cake directly on the coals. The bottom of the cake would probably be full of ash or whatever, but the top of it, they would take it off. It would be, and they would eat it like that. Unless it gets a crust. So bread or cake has to get a crust. Crust only needs to be on the bottom. Or I don't know if it means only or both. I'm not sure. We'll have to see in the Gemara. There's an exception to this. You can lower the Pesach into the grilling, the pit that they would roast it in before it gets dark. Even though that night was Shabbos and Pesach. We said, the Gemara says, B'nei Chabura Zrizim. They were quick. They would do it quickly, and they were careful. They would also light the fire in the Beis HaMikdash. That was the room that the Kohanim would warm themselves. They would sleep there. However, in other areas, if you're lighting a fire, you have to have most of the log should be caught on fire. Otherwise, you may still be involved in it. It has to be mostly caught on fire. Rabbi Yehuda says that's only if it's new wood, but if it's a coal that you're using, then once it catches on, you don't have to wait for everything to catch on, because the coals catch on, they'll continue on their own, and you don't have the same concerns. Okay, let's leave it over here. The Gemara will go through all of these details.